What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to this another Shea Bridge Show. Here with my boy Hayden. Mets Talk with Hayden, and of course, Talking Mets with Rob. Rob is here. Well, it's another week and another shit show from this New York Mets team. Losing to one of the worst teams in baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals, playing terrible baseball against the Yankees. I mean, it was the battle of who can be worse than New York in them 2-game series with the Mets and the Yankees. It's just been a roller coaster that has never really come back up. You know that long roller coaster that goes down, 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 and you just waiting for it to come back up. And then it kind of like hits a little bit of a height and a little bit of bump, and then it just goes right back down. Because that's that we have as New York Mets fans. So the Mets are 33-38, as it says on your screen. Those are the last 5 games at home during the homestand. 2-3 on the homestand. Splitting against the Yankees. I mean, it seems like that's what we always do against the Yankees. We either could have lost both of those games or won both of those games. It could have went either way. It's frustrating in that series because the first game we'll talk about with Scherzer in the beginning had a 4-run lead, but that's for the story for a little bit later on. So I want to bring it over right to Hayden for his exceptional rants that we've been accustomed to knowing because the Mets have sucked so much. So Hayden, I want to bring it over to you, and then I'll give my rant for this damn team. So Hayden, what's up? Make sure you subscribe to his channel, hit on that like button, all that fun stuff. Hayden, I'll give you the floor, buddy.
Yeah, well, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. Hope everyone is doing well on their Sunday evening. Hopefully everyone had a good Father's Day and weekend overall. It is summertime, so that's always great. Well, summer solstice, I think, is tomorrow, so I don't know, whatever. Spring, summer, whatever. That's besides the point. If you're tuning in on my channel, LFGM, Rob's channel, LFGM, all that great stuff. But, Mets played baseball this week, and they played like crap once again. Big surprise. They played like shit. If you look at the screen, I mean, it's pretty obvious to tell the Mets battled, as Mickey Callaway would say, they battled. And Buck Showalter, that's his new thing now, as he said today, is that he's proud and that the Mets battled, and that's a positive. You know, my opinion, I think the positive is winning the game, not battling. But that's besides the point. What do I know? Mets look like a crap team. Not going to sugarcoat it. I think a word to describe this team is inconsistent and lifeless. This is an embarrassment of a ball club. And people say, oh, the Cardinals are the worst team in the National League. I think you could argue it's the Mets. For a team to go out there and lose a series to the Cardinals, the Rockies, the Nationals, Cubs.
Detroit,
the Tigers. I would argue the Mets are one of the worst teams in baseball. As of recently, the Athletics are winning the game somehow. This team plays with no heart, no hustle, and they do not grind. They are lazy, and I'm not trying to sound like Frank Fleming here, but they are lazy, and you could tell. Mentally, they're taking that on the field. This team is the most inconsistent ball team that I think we've ever seen in a while. When the pitching's good, the offense is bad. When the offense is good, the pitching is bad. They can never have it the same at the same time. How many times this year did the Mets, finish a ball game winning like 9-0? I can't recall. If someone could tell me in the chat, that'd be great. The biggest weakness for this team is their pitching staff. It is that simple. Right now, don't get me wrong, I think in the beginning of the season, I think the offense definitely was a big reason they lost games. You look at the Toronto Blue Jays series. You look at the first National series, the first Braves series. This was a team that couldn't score runs. They couldn't hit with 2 outs. They couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. But now it solely comes to the pitching staff. It's obvious. When you're losing ball games 8-7 and 7-6, and, you look at the statistics. The Mets are, 17-2 when a starter goes 7 innings, or 17-1, something around there. 17-2 now. Yeah, that says it right there. If your offense is scoring 10, 11 runs and still losing, that's a bit of an issue. And I sent it to Rob and the group chat just a couple minutes ago. And just to quickly say, when scoring 7 runs in 2022, the Mets were 44-2. Where this year, they're 10-6. Yep. When they scored 6 runs in 2022, they were 55-4. This year, they're 12-10. When the Mets scored 5 runs last year, they were 76-5. This year, they're 22-13. And when the Mets scored 4 runs last year, they were 87-8 and 26-17 this year. Yep. 7-0. It is the pitching. Billy Epler decided to inherit in an old veteran rotation. And wow, your starters aren't going deep into games. No way. Someone that's 40 years old isn't going 7 innings. Wow, that's surprising. You have Justin Verlander, 40 years old. Max Scherzer, about to be 40 years old. Carlos Carrasco, who's like 37, 38. He's on the decline, and everyone can tell you that. Jose Quintana hasn't pitched, but, he's 34, 35. He's not, young. Billy Epler had one of the best rotations in baseball. And, last year, I would say the Mets' rotation result-wise and projected-wise was the top 5 rotation in baseball. Now they're one of the top 5 worst rotations in baseball. The starting pitching is a joke. We see that this bullpen is overtaxed. In the beginning of the season, constantly your starters were going 3 innings, 4 innings, 5 innings, high pitch counts. Well, Buck Showalter had no choice but to go to his bullpen in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And then we knew the consequences of that coming into May and then June and July. And, well, now we're seeing the consequences of that. Your bullpen is overtaxed and overused, and we're seeing guys get sent up and back to AAA Syracuse. And in June, for your bullpen to be overtaxed, that's bad. The only guys I trust in this bullpen are Robertson and Rayleigh, and that's about it. I have no trust in anyone else. None of them are guys that have trust in their names. They are relievers. They're annual guys. They're inconsistent. They're streaky. And listen, you can say what you want about Buck Showalter's bullpen management. That's been the case for him for 20 years, so I'm not even going to bring that up. But this pitching staff is a freaking embarrassment. They look so horrible. This team loves blowing leads, loves blowing saves. And I come on here and I say the same exact thing. Rob and I, we come on here and we say the same exact thing. It's the pitching. The offense, sure. We look at yesterday's game, 5-3. Could they have came back? They left guys in scoring position? Okay, sure. There's been games where the offense is the reason they lost. Same reason that was the case for the Dodgers and for the Astros and for the Yankees. Pitching wins championships. The pitching is responsible. You have 38 losses. I would say your pitching staff is probably responsible for 30 of those losses?
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but that's just,
No, you're right. I'll give you a stat in a little bit.
Please. Say what you want about Bassett last year and Walker, but at least they went out there every 5th day and gave you 3-4 runs. Instead of, Carlos Carrasco, who goes out there, 7 runs in 3 innings. Or Verlander and Scherzer, who have a good start and then everyone gets hyped and then they, 3 1/3, 7 runs. Don't worry, McGill only gave up 2 runs, but I'm sure he'll go back to crumbling next time. I cannot with this team right now. This team is unwatchable. And I'm tired of coming on here and saying the same exact thing over and over again. It is an endless cycle. This team is keep going through the motions, and that is what really is really starting to get me frustrated. You look at today's game. You battled. You came back. You fought. But guess what? Your pitching is horrible. And today, I didn't watch the game because why would I? Why am I going to watch the same exact stuff happen over again? I could just tell you that in my head. I can imagine I could be sitting in front of a pool or a beach in Florida saying, oh, Ottavino's coming in. Damn, he's probably going to give up a 2-run homer and a stupid slider. I can tell you that. Right now, you look at today's game, and that sums up the Mets. They battled, and then they come back, and the bullpen comes in and blows leads. And you look at the 8th inning. From what I've heard, Robertson, 8 pitches in the 8th inning. Doesn't go out the 9th. Why is that? Why does Robertson not go out for the 9th inning? Because you have a game tomorrow? I'll tell you this, the Mets are getting swept against the Astros. I'll bet that. But why are we planning for tomorrow? Plan for today. I don't care about tomorrow. Focus tomorrow when it happens. Plan for today. When you're doing an assignment, if you're in school, if you're at work, you are doing all the tasks that you're supposed to do for today, not for tomorrow. Why is Buck Showalter planning the bullpen for tomorrow? I don't care that Robertson may need a pitch tomorrow. He may not. Who knows? The Mets can get blown out 13-0. Are you going to use Robertson? Probably not. Or they could win 13-0, which I doubt. Are you going to use Robertson? Probably not. So why are we putting Ottavino in the 9th inning after Robertson pitched 8 pitches in the 8th inning? And for the meat of the order coming up in Goldschmidt and Arenado, doesn't Buck Showalter love using Robertson against the big meat of the order of the opposing teams, but not for the Cardinals? Why is that? So yeah, that was on Buck Showalter. I will blame Buck Showalter on that. There is no reason for him not to put Robertson back in for that ninth inning after throwing 8 pitches. If he wanted to face 2 batters and then take him out, okay. I mean, I don't really, but whatever. This team is just, and I understand right now, everyone talks about Buck Showalter. I get that. And I understand, firing Buck isn't really going to change anything. It's not going to change the pitching performance. It's not going to make Senga or, not Senga, but it's not going to make any of your bullpen arms. It's not going to make Ottavino. It's not going to make Brigham. It's not going to make Carrasco pitch any better. But you're a team that has the highest payroll in baseball, 33-38, and you have a 19-31 stretch. 4th place in your division, and you're like 12 and a half games back from first place from the Braves. I think right now, making a change to something shows that the Mets are accountable. I don't care if you fire a janitor. You need to fire someone to show a message. Show a message that you care. Show a message that you are awake, that you have a sense of urgency, and that you want to win. And maybe if people and the players say, people are starting to get fired, maybe I should get my shit together. And maybe that'll make Buck Showalter and Billy Epler and other guys get their shit together. We know Cohen doesn't like firing people, and I think that's the big difference between him and Steinbrenner and, comparison with that. But, yeah, right now fans are not happy. They're going after Cohen. I mean, I do. Tweets out after that ugly Yankee series and then goes into hibernation afterwards. Why is that? Let him focus on his casinos, and that's great. But, right now, someone needs to get fired. Someone needs to be held accountable for this horrible performance. I have no confidence in this team. And I think they are going to get swept in Houston. Astros just got swept by the Reds. They need some wins in their books. I don't see the Mets chanting any chance against the Astros. I don't, you look at the NL East. They're not competing against the Braves. I think anyone here, regardless, you don't even like the Braves, I think everyone in this chat knows that the Braves are better than the Mets. Everyone in this chat can argue right now the Braves are playing much better than the Mets. I mean, look at the records, look at the statistics and average OPS, whatever. There's no catching up to the Braves. Braves beat us last year. The Braves beat us so far this year. The Braves are a good team. It's that simple. They're one of the best teams in the NL. Look at the Marlins. They're actually a good team. I live in Florida. I watch a lot of Marlins games. They're a good team this year. They are a good team. Jorge Soler, great year. Their offense, guys like Garrett Cooper, Brian De La Cruz, Jazz Chisholm, John Birdie, Joey Wendell. They're pretty good. And now you have a young pitching staff, and that's without Sandy Alcantara pitching well.
Yeah.
Sandy Alcantara's been bad this year, and they're, 38-30 without him? Well, with him, but he's not doing great. Guys like Yuri Perez is pitching well. Edward Cabrera. They're relievers very well. AJ Puck, really, really good closer.
Luzardo.
Yeah, Luzardo. And, dare do I mention the Phillies? When the Phillies played us, all those games were close. The Phillies battled in the ninth inning. It was a nail-biting situation when it came to those Philly games. Playing well now. June Schwarber's here. Castellanos is playing well. They're hitting. Their pitching is actually not bad. Who are the Mets going to be competing with? The Nationals? You need to get things done. Because I'll tell you, I have no confidence in the Astros series. I have no confidence in the Philly series. I don't know what to do. And I'm tired of coming on here and saying the same thing, that this team goes through the same motions and same motions and same motions, and we're seeing the same results. Someone needs to get fired to show a message. And then, you go from there. I simply enough, I'm tired of saying the same exact stuff. And you know what? We're moving back in the standings every day by day. The Marlins have like a 6-game win streak. The Phillies have like a 6-game win streak. Come July, if, like I said, the Mets are in an inadequate position, it's going to be rough. And you're seeing fans are not happy right now. They're going after Cohen. They're going after Buck. They're going after Epler. They're going after the players. Guys need to step up. That's simple. You want to be a leader? Step up. Because right now, I'll tell you, in a month from now, if they're playing the well they are, you're going to have no fans in the stands. You're going to be playing in a ballpark like 2020. And, you could see, and then last thing, I know I'm kind of going off and I'll let Rob take over, of course, but last thing, this team is very sloppy right now. Very sloppy. And you can make the comparison to last year's Phillies from the first half. Very sloppy. They're making a lot of, mentally, they are very out of it right now, this team. You're seeing guys like Lindor, guys like Alonso, guys like Escobar, guys like Nimmo starting to make these stupid mistakes that they would never make. And why is that? Because they're losing and they're not playing well, and they're carrying that stress and they're carrying their inadequate performances, the team's overall performances, onto the field. And they're making those mental mistakes. They're making those base running mistakes. Big comparisons between the 2022 first half Philadelphia Phillies and this Mets team right now. I rest my case.
Yeah. And you know what? Prime example, when Ottavino gave up that home run today, they pinned straight in the face of many Mets players. Guys, right? Francisco Lindor, usually always smiling. Even when the Mets are losing, he'll still keep that positive smile, attitude, and everything like that. Straight angry face. They pan to Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo always smiles. He never have a smile on his face. He looked miserable. At the end of the game, when the Mets lost the game, they showed a shot of Francisco Alvarez sitting on the bench like this, going like this, eyeing the field in disgust. So he's feeling it. You can tell these guys, these players are feeling it. We are feeling it. I want to give credit because I killed Mets fans on this channel for Tuesday against the Yankees, where I said on Monday on the Mets Roundtable podcast, do not let Yankee fans take over Citi Field. I know you're frustrated. I know you're disappointed with this team, but show up. Do not let another fan base take over your team. I said that. Tuesday, there was probably 60-40 Yankee fans, and I even put that in the group chat. Hayden was in the group chat as well. I brought it up. Big time. It sounded like Yankee Stadium. There is no denying that, and I was pissed. And then when I found out, when I did a little bit of research, that 11,276 Mets fans that were either 2040 or full season ticket holders sold their tickets to that game. Who was going to buy them tickets? Miami Marlins fans? National fans? Philly fans who were in New York those days? No. You know who was going to buy it? Yankee fans. They came in droves. And you know what? Good for them, even though their team sucks as well. Right? And then Wednesday, a little bit better. I see the Met fans showed up. I don't know what it was. Maybe they realized that they look like complete assholes selling their tickets and not supporting, at least trying to not take over your fan base. If you want to go to the game and boo the hell out of the Mets, boo them. Just like they booed Scherzer. But, oh, by the way, I couldn't hear them booing Scherzer because Yankee fans were going nuts at Citi Field. Right? That's one thing. That's what we're going to get to that in a second when it comes to the Yankee series. The New York Mets are mentally done. Mentally, they're done. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't go on a stretch of, I don't know, whatever good stretch you might think of. How about a 7 out of 3 that we had in the West Coast? That would be nice early in April. That might make us look like we're competent. Not saying we're turning the season around, but you know what? They were mentally drained and mentally done. And the biggest problem now, you could say, now all the players that are doing well this year, not a lot of them, right? Tommy Pham, Brooks Raley, David Robinson, the young kids, Alvarez, Beatty has looked all right.
Nimmo's doing very well.
Nimmo's been fine. But Nimmo's, cost us a couple of games with his base running, but Nimmo's been one of probably our best players.
I'd say 95% of the season.
Yeah, I agree. So besides Nimmo, The guys that I just mentioned, Pham, Beatty, Alvarez, Brooks Raley, and David Robinson. Guys that weren't on the team last year. So they don't have that mental breakdown that they had at the end of the year like the other players do. All the players that are struggling, the McNeils, the Lindors, the Alonsos, Scherzer, Carrasco, all these guys were guys that were here last year that went through the last 2 weeks in September into the playoff series, and it seems like it carried over to the 2023 season. Again, I don't truly believe in that stuff because if you ever played sports before, you got to wipe that stuff off because it's a new season. But the way we lost in Atlanta last year and the way we lost at Citi Field against the Padres were very similar to the way we're losing games this year. The pitching sucked, the mental errors, no clutch hits. This was the first time this year the Mets had more than two runs scored with 2 outs. They had 7 today. Holy shit. Now, if that didn't get you excited as a Met fan, we came back. That's one thing. But having 7 runs with 2 outs, that's unheard of in 2023 for the New York Mets. So my bigger problem is the fact that you want to blame Buck taking out Robertson to Ottavino. I'd agree. I was a little skeptical of that too. But you know what? If Robinson would have came in the 9th and Ottavino would have been in the 8th, which I thought would have been more possible since it was
Robinson could have pitched 2 innings.
I agree. I don't know why he did that. And I didn't see his post game to find out if anybody in the chat says saw what Buck Showalter said when asked that question. But I'm assuming it was the saving for tomorrow. I don't maybe or maybe I don't know. Robinson pitched yesterday. Did he? Right? He did, right?
He did not.
Okay, so I was a little confused by that, but here's the other point. In the last 2 innings of the game, you used your 2 best relief arms, considering overall what Ottavino has done for the Mets for last year and some of this year. He's been pitching better as of late. Can Ottavino not throw a 96 miles an hour fastball on a tee to one of the best hitters in baseball, Nolan Arenado? Can he not do that? It was, if it was his slider, I would say typical Ottavino. But throwing a cookie, no pun intended, right down the middle to Nolan Arenado, like, what are you thinking? That's a mental break right there. That's not throwing your slider and you don't get enough on it, or it's just a cement mixer in the middle of the zone. I would say typical Ottavino. But throwing a fastball right down the middle is just a mental lapse. And this goes back to exactly what a lot of these guys are going through. Mental lapse. The Mets were top in the league defensively. And this is more mental than anything else. They were top 3 in the league in the first month of the season in defensive statistics. They made like 2 errors in the month of April. They were one of the best teams defensively. Now they're ranked 22nd. That's all. That's only in not even 2 months.
They have like 12 hours in like the last 13 games.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem. And that's how you know it's all mental at this point. It's not talent anymore. Because talent-wise, you would think these guys would revamp back to the back of their baseball cards. Because Lindor is not old. Why shouldn't he at least be batting 250? You saw the emotion he had when he hit that home run in the first inning. Right? You saw the emotion. He feels it. Other guys feel it. You saw Alonso upset that he struck out, even though it's his first time back in 11 days. What can you expect from a guy who hasn't seen line pitching? But you've seen the emotion. You've seen it in a lot of these guys. You know what? Even Vogelback, when he hit that deep left center field shot that hit the warning track, you saw the emotion in him. You know what? As much as we kill Vogelback, you could see he cares. You could see it pisses him off that he sucks. Another 10 feet, that ball's over the fence. Like any other part of the ballpark, he might have hit a home run, but he hit it in the wrong part of the ballpark. You could see it weighing on them. And it's not going to stop until one series completely goes their way. Like, not saying that this would happen, but say in this Houston series, Everybody thinks we're going to get swept. I mean, the Astros haven't been playing well. I think they lost 8 out of their last 11. Their pitching is in shambles, even though they've been better with the couple of guys they brought up. Their offense has been struggling. Yordan Alvarez won't be in this series. But the Astros are the Astros. They're an extremely good team. And you're a team that shouldn't beat this. The Mets shouldn't beat this team. But in typical Mets fashion, they'll find a way to get the Mets fans just a little bit excited, just like the Philly series. They'll find a way to win 2 out of 3 because the Mets just like to fucking torture us. They will find a way 2 out of 3. I don't know how they'll do it. I don't know if, they gotta get each batter and the Mets got to get hit by a pitch to win ball games. I don't know. But they're going to find a way because this team never just goes into, stick their heads in the dirt and never shows himself again. This team will find a way to get between 2 games under 500 going to Philadelphia. And you know what's going to happen. The Mets are going to play pretty well, but they'll probably lose 2 out of 3 or lose or get swept. And then we're right back to square one. And this has been the problem the whole entire year. When you start out 14-7 in the first 21 games of the season with no pitching staff, remember, Scherzer was on, remember, he wasn't really pitching that much. And then the suspension happened. Verlander was nobody to be found. No Quintana. So you had David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Denny Reyes. These were guys that were pitching the first month and a half of the season. The first 21 games of the year, I think Scherzer had like 2 starts, maybe 3. So they were winning ball games without anybody pitching. So what happened? Did the pitching get worse? Or was it when one thing went wrong, they decided everything was going to go wrong? And that is the biggest problem. It's a trickle-down effect. When they say, don't kick somebody when they're down, that's basically what's happening. Every time they're kicking themselves down, every time, they get hit, they go down, they try to get back up and they stumble upon themselves. That's basically what they're doing. And I don't know what it is. Is it mentally soft? Is it just bad years from guys you expect to have seasons like the back of their baseball cards? Now, I wasn't expecting, I don't know what everybody else thought, and I can care less about the money because I don't look at salary and say this is the projection that I'm expecting, right? Point example, right? Did anybody expect Justin Verlander to have a sub-2 ERA this year? I didn't. Maybe some did. But I wasn't expecting him to be this bad. I expect him, if he had a 3 ERA, 3.2 ERA, I'd take that, considering what he has right now. Scherzer, I didn't know what to expect, considering the fact that he looked like a shell of himself from the beginning of last year, from the end of last year, and into this year. I think the biggest problem with Scherzer is not stuff. Because if you look at that Yankee game, and I talked about this already, if you look at that Yankee game, if you look at that Yankee game on Tuesday, I watched the game because when you're at the ball game, you don't see everything, in a TV point of view. Because I'm sitting down by the third base side in the upper deck. I can't really see how the pitchers are moving or stuff like that. With his fastball, changeup, and curveball, I think he gave up 9 hits, if I'm not mistaken, against the Yankees. I believe that's what it was. 2 of those hits came on those 3 pitches. Every other hit was on a slider. So 7 out of those 9 hits were on his slider. So in my mind, my next start, which is tomorrow for Scherzer, is let me limit my slider and throw it every now and then when they're not expecting it. Because his fastball, they were late on, even though he's only throwing 93, 94. Occasionally, he would get it up to 95, but mostly 93, 94. His curveball kept them off balance. They were swinging and missing. And the changeup, they were off balance. So if 3 of those pitches were working, why in God's green earth are you fucking throwing sliders to guys that can't hit their way out of a paper bag? DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Volpe, Giancarlo Stanton. These guys are in major slumps. Why are you throwing the one pitch that can slow up their bat, that can speed up their bat, the slider? I think it's not stuff with Max Scherzer. I think that slider is not as sharp as it used to be, which is okay. If you only had a fastball and slider combination, I would say, the guy can't just throw fastballs. But he has 3 other pitchers that were working. I want to see tomorrow in that next start, if there's more than 6 or 7 sliders thrown in whatever amount of pitches he throws, he's going to get rocked. I can guarantee it. I hope they put up the stat. If he throws more than 6 or 7 sliders in his game, it's going to be a bad night for Scherzer. It's just that simple. Because he was dominant with his fastball, curveball, and changeup. And the slider hurt him. It hurt him in the Braves series, the game, and it hurt him in the Yankee game. You do not continue to look. We blew leads again. 4-run lead against the Yankees. 3-run leads in every fucking game against the Braves. This series against the Cardinals, I don't know what to make of this. I honestly don't. The first game against the Cardinals was decent, pretty good. 6-1, nice victory. McGill pitched good out of all people. Carrasco was a dumpster fire, but the offense came back, and one mistake by our relief pitchers cost us the game. Yesterday, the offense didn't come through, but how many more times does the offense have to pick up the pitch in this year? And they put up a stat. 9 times this year, the New York Mets scored 6 runs or more, and lost. 9 games this year. Now, if you win half of those games, say you win 4, you're 4-5 in 9 games, scoring 6 runs or more. You're at 500 right now. Right? That's the big difference right there. And how nice is it that the Yankees are getting killed? Beautiful. I'm sorry. I'm watching the Yankee game right now because that's the only thing I like. That, it's interesting because the Red Sox are actually beating the Yankees. It's more fun right now than the Mets, finding ways to lose. So, going to the Yankee series, I wanted to get through this really quick, but I wanted to say one thing. My thing, and it's always been this way when there was only 2 wildcard teams, now there's 3 wildcard teams. My, line to cross of being buyers or sellers is around July 1st. If you're within 3 games of a wildcard spot, and I talked about this with Hayden prior to the stream, if you're within 3 games of a wild card spot by July 1st, which is about 12 days, a little under 2 weeks away. If you're not within 3 games of a wild card spot, if you're 4 games, you might have to make a decision, which I can understand them going either way. But if you're 3 games or less, you have to be somewhat buyers. I'm not saying sell your farm system away to get guys in here to make us better. But getting little pieces here, maybe another bullpen arm, maybe a middle-of-the-road pitcher might actually help this situation, because it seems like 1 or 2 arms could actually solidify a bullpen. That's why I think people are waiting for Quintana, but it might be too late by the time Quintana comes back. This team might be in the dumpster. Right now, we're 6 games out of a wild card spot. Can we get that down to 3 by the end of the week? I don't know.
That.
3 games or less by July 1st, which is a little less than 2 weeks away. So it's about 11 games or so, maybe 12, depending on off days. So in these 12 games, can I see desperation from this team? Because aren't we in desperate road 5 games under 500, 6 games out of the wild card? That is the problem. But can they do it? I mean, the Phillies have done it. They got themselves back over 500, right? I still don't think Philly's a good team. I will say this to the cows come home. The Phillies got lucky last year because they got hot for not even a month and a half. And I brought this up many times on many shows, many streams. The Philadelphia Phillies in August when they faced the Mets. This was the middle of August. Philly fans were walking out of the ballpark shaking their heads, saying, "I can't believe how bad this team is." Now, that was only a month later while they were doing damage in the playoffs. So don't tell me that a team that looks like the Mets right now can't turn it around with the talent they have on the roster. You're going to tell me that a team that was very similar to last year, specifically the lineup, the rotation, yeah. But say if Verlander and Scherzer pitch good. I'm not even saying great, good. It could change things for a little bit of the better. Do I expect it? No. Scott, we keep comparing our start to the Braves and the Phillies starts. Okay, but here's the problem. The Braves weren't a very good team in 2021 either. I'm not even talking about last year. Last year they were on another level after from the June 1st. In 2021, they were hovering around 500. And if that one series against the Mets before the trade deadline determined if they were going to be buyers and sellers. So let's not act like the Braves were running away with everything in 2021. And even when they made the playoffs, nobody was expecting them to win the World Series, right? The Nationals of 2019, exactly where the Mets were right now. And I can assure you the Mets' talent was a hell of a lot better than what the Nationals had in 2019. And last year, the Phillies, you have to look at the Phillies. You know why? Because of the fact they're in your own division. How many years? This is what? 2019, 2021, 2022. So 3 out of the last 5 years. A team in the NL East has come back in the second half by being around 500 or a little bit below 500, where the Mets basically are. And you know what got them better? I mean, does anybody remember a huge trade that any of those teams made at the deadline?
Small pieces.
Thank you. Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler for the Braves. For the Phillies, bullpen help. Right? What changed in that roster that was huge? There was no Cespedes trade that they got at the deadline. It was little moves that helped them just get over the top and save their season a little bit better, a little bit at a time. It wasn't a huge jump. So don't act like a small move here or there, if the Mets stay within range of a wild card spot, can't change something. Because all you need is that one guy to come in to solidify a bullpen or solidify a rotation. Somebody that can go out there every fifth day and give you quality starts every fifth day. It might not be an ace. It might not even be a number 2. It could be a decent number 3 and a number 4 that can give you good outings every single time, that could solidify a rotation. When every time that guy comes out on the mound, you know you're going to get a quality starter and a chance to win.
I think, looking at this team right now, and, obviously Rob brings up the point that, you look at the past, you look at the Phillies last year, you look at the Braves last year, you look at the Braves in 2021. These were teams that, got hot at the right time, and they made minor pieces that overall trickled down to the rest of the team and made them a good team. Obviously, the Braves, acquiring, guys like Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler, whoever. Phillies, a couple bullpen arms, pitcher, move a couple guys around. And, I think right now you look at this Mets team, well, who do you have coming back? Obviously, internally, you got Quintana, okay, 34 years old, nice lefty arm. He's is he going to be the spark of this rotation? Probably not. Obviously, yeah, maybe Quintana comes in and you could slither out Carrasco or put Carrasco in a bullpen role, or I really don't know. But then all of them, well, then what do you do with McGill? What do you do with Scherzer? Scherzer and Verlander are going to throw 2 great starts and then, 3 bad starts. Are they going to be inconsistent? It's not like like I said, you're not getting, it's not like you have this Jacob deGrom ace coming back from the IL. This is your team. This is your team, at least until the deadline. And if you can acquire another arm or whoever, this is your team. And right now, I don't have any confidence in this team. I don't feel comfortable riding this team. And yeah, I mean, you could look at teams like the Phillies and teams like the Braves. I think they're similar to this team to an extent. Obviously, you look at this team and the projections on paper, this Mets team is good, but unfortunately, baseball is a result-oriented game, and the games are not determined by projections and expected stats. It's a result-oriented game, and when a guy goes 0 for 4, well, That's a result. Doesn't matter that he has a expecting average of 270 or he hit the ball hard. Doesn't matter. Good things will happen, sure, but right now it's what is Billy Epler going to do? What is this team going to do? And I tell you, there's little stuff that needs to be done and then bigger stuff that needs to be done. But the Mets are not even looking at the little picture stuff, whether that's firing Hefner or somebody, coaching staff, whether that's benching a guy, holding a player accountable. And like everyone says in the chat, I am shocked that Cohen is letting this happen. And I hate not to bring up Cohen and say what you want, about me with Cohen, but I am genuinely surprised that, listen, 2021, I'll give him that. Sandy Alderson wasn't his. Luis Rojas wasn't his. None of those guys were his. Obviously, I think a big reason he kept Sandy Alderson is because Sandy Alderson had a lot of respect in MLB, and he was trying to, gain a lot of favoritism in baseball. But right now, these are all
to make moves because of the owner.
Right. These are all of his guys. I mean, besides Jeremy Hefner, I would say every single coach and executive is Cohen's. These are Cohen's guys, and you're not winning with them. So I'm really surprised. And obviously we look at the difference between Cohen and Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner, if something happens, boom, he makes that change. Where Cohen right now, obviously, it's 3 years into his ownership, and he kind of, last year was successful for the most part, obviously until last 2 weeks came of the season, and I get it. He said 3 to 5 years, and we're in year 3, and not quite a World Series roster yet. On paper, maybe, but even the bullpen, I can't even think you could argue that, or pitching. I think right now, Cohen needs to do something. And you saw, he had that BS tweet after they barely beat the Yankees. Yeah. Something like, great game, too many mental mistakes, but that will be fixed, or something like that. That's great, but no offense, no one really cares what your opinion is if you don't act upon it. You could say anything you want on Twitter, but it's not going to mean anything if something needs to be done. And say what you want about Brodie Van Wagenen in 2019. Say what you want about him. But at least he went into that clubhouse after they were losing, and he threw a chair, and he went off on those coaches and those players. At least he cared. And what happened? The Mets won the next, 14 out of 15 or 16? What is Billy Epler doing? He's putting on these BS press conferences. Well, I have trust in this roster. I think these are good players. They're just getting – no. He needs to go off on players. He needs to go off. And I'm not saying he needs to call out, John, Steve, and Bill specifically, but show some life, show some urgency. And I am very surprised that Steve Cohen is letting this happen under his watch.
Well, you know what, Hayden? We don't know what's going on internally. We don't know how much flack he's giving Epler or coming in at Citi Field after today's game and giving, cursing his brain. Cohen's going into the Bucks office and cursing him out and maybe having a rough conversation with these players in the locker room at closed doors. We don't know that. And again, I think in this situation, and here's the problem with a lot of people, that people want Buck fired, Epler fired. Great. I can assure you this team's going to win 100 games once they're fired because here's the problem. People react without thinking. And that is the big problem. And again, a lot of us are football fans. A lot of us are Ranger fans. All right. The teams that are consistent in Major League Baseball, right? And I'll bring up football and hockey in a little bit. The Yankees and the Dodgers are considered consistent franchises that always make the playoffs, even the Braves for this matter, right? What is the one thing they have in common that mostly any other franchise in baseball has in these three teams? Consistency in their front office, right? They don't just fire somebody when things are going wrong. You don't think in 2021, Snicker wasn't on the hot seat? Because he was, right? It wasn't looking very good, right? They thought there was a mistake bringing him in as manager. There was talks about that. All of a sudden, the deadline came and they started to play better. So the consistency matters. Making a quick reaction because of a half a season isn't showing consistency. Because if let me ask everybody something. For everybody who loves Steinbrenner and he would fire everybody, right? If it wasn't for Steinbrenner getting suspended in the late 80s to early 90s, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera would not be a Yankee because they almost traded Derek Jeter at one point in time. So G. Michaels was the guy who was running things when Steinbrenner was suspended from baseball. So let's not act like the dynasty happened because of Steinbrenner. How many World Series did Steinbrenner have a real part of after the dynasty of the late 90s? That was basically Stick Michaels' team, right? All the fire-ins, all the complaints, right? George Steinbrenner was on his deathbed in 2009 when they won the World Series. So it really wasn't his call on everything. When, oh, by the way, the Yankees actually spent a lot of money, most money in baseball, to buy a World Series in 2009. But even the guys who they bought wouldn't have mattered if A-Rod didn't go off in the playoffs, right? So consistency matters, guys. Don't just make a reaction because they're hurting your feelings this year when everybody was like, oh, I love Buck last year when nothing can do anything wrong. Buck was telling the umpires the rules. And I can assure you that's hurting.
That is a good point. I mean, I think that...
give me 1 second. I'm sorry. When it comes to any team that consistently fires managers and GMs and front office personnel, the New York Jets. When was the last time the Jets had any consistency in their front office or their coaching staff? The Rex Ryan years, right? You look at the New York Rangers, my favorite team in hockey. Every 2 years, they seem like they go through a coach. It goes through the same cycle. If you're not going to have consistency in your front office and your front office personnel, your GM and your coach, not saying that these guys are going and doing a good job, but this same front office, the same coaching staff won 101 games last year. You can't just forget that and pick on them for 71 games this season. Because once you get fire-ins and you throw people in, you fire a GM, you fire a coach. That means a new GM is going to come in and all those draft picks that they don't like, they ain't even going to be a part of. Now it's going to be a new regime that has different thoughts, different processes, and it could be worse. So make sure you want these guys fired because this next front office, this next coaching staff could be worse. And then what you're going to do? Fire them as well? Well, you're going to repeat the process. And that is the biggest problem. Don't react so quickly to 71 games. Again, this season might not end the way we all want it to. But there's 29 other teams that seasons won't go as planned either. Every year that happens. And again, 7 top payrolls in baseball. Out of the top 7, 2 are in the playoffs right now. Actually, the Yankees are not anymore. So 1 out of 7 top payrolls in baseball are not in the playoffs right now. Is only the Dodgers. So it's not only the Mets. Yeah, Hayden, I'm sorry.
No, and I agree with you on that, Rob. I mean, obviously, money doesn't buy baseball. You and I both know that. I think the thing with Buck Showalter right now is, and people pretty much actually said in the chat what I was going to say, so kind of to echo on what people are saying in the chat, and Rob, you said in the past, I've said in the past, is Showalter seems to have taken a little bit of a step back this year in the beginning of the season. We noticed that, and then I don't know if that kind of left an inadequate effect on this team right now, but he seems to be a little bit just different in terms of just his style this year. Last year, there was success. Like you said, he was going out there. That series in Miami with the base running rule with Nimmo, whatever it was in Miami, he went out there and he told the umpires that rule. And then Nimmo was like, oh, well, during spring training, Buck Showalter told us this. So, yeah, you could say Buck won a lot of games last year. You could say he lost a lot of games last year. Either or, doesn't matter. I think the thing with Buck and 1818 Mets said it. They don't need to be fired, but they need to start showing fire. And that is my issue with Buck Showalter right now. Okay, you're not going to fire him, but he needs to start showing some heat. When he's giving these bullcrap press conferences, I'm proud. No, you're not. He needs to start showing awareness, accountability, stop stop defending these guys. Like, listen, I get it. It's your players. You defend them. And I'm not asking them to call, a specific player out, but stop with the excuses. I'm not asking Bach to come on and say that, the Mets played like crap and, start saying all the things, but stop picking the positive parts and talking about it when you're losing. Right. Nobody cares if, as much as I love Alonso and love Nimmo, nobody cares if Alonso and Nimmo hits a home run and the Mets lose 7-4. Nobody's going to care. What are they going to care about? When Alonso and Nimmo do stuff and the Mets win.
I agree.
Yeah, they're grown men. I agree.
That's a huge difference.
Needs to start taking accountability and going after these guys. Billy Epler, too. Yeah, I see his presence. I have faith in this roster. Yeah, I mean, statistically, in the expected projections, sure. But, like I said, it's a result-oriented game, and it doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing. And listen, I will say when it comes to Buck, obviously he's a little bit of an older manager, but I will say 101 wins in last year shouldn't be justification for him to have his job safe. Same with Epler. You can make that same case for the Giants in 2021.
If you have one good year and one bad year,
2019.
If you have one good year and one bad year, you can't just fire a manager.
I get it. That is a short sample size.
Joe Girardi got fired because he sucked the previous years as a Philly manager.
I get that.
Thompson, for everybody in the chat that keeps on talking about, Joe Girardi was a good manager. Rob Thompson was never a manager, okay? And Rob Thompson is old, all right? He's not 30 years old, 40 years old. This guy's up there in age. He's been a bench coach for many, 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 many years, all right? And that comes back to the same thing. It's like, was Dave Martinez a good coach all of a sudden? A good manager all of a sudden? He was garbage. They couldn't get – they were choke artists every year, the Nationals. They couldn't get out of their own way. They got rid of their biggest star in Bryce Harper, and the following year they won the World Series. Was that Dave Martinez? Or was that players actually playing to the back of their baseball cards? That was the difference. And that's the same thing with the Phillies last year as well. It's not like they got a Yoenis Cespedes out of nowhere or a top-line starter or a top-line bullpen arm. They got decent, small moves. The guys played better. Their defense got better. They pitched a little bit better. That was it. They were still scoring 5 runs per game, so it wasn't their offense. Their pitching got a little bit better. They pitched a little bit better to the back of their baseball cards. Sometimes it comes down to the players, right? I can assure you Rob Thompson wasn't throwing on the mound every single day or coming out of the bullpen. The guys pitched better. Now, if it takes a coaching change to mentally,
and that's what it is, it's the mental aspect.
Yeah, but you know what? I
get it. 2021 too. It was the same thing. I mean, with guys like Lindor, McNeil, their relationship. I mean, you saw the mental awareness was a big thing where you would see guys, for example, their manager, Luis Rojas, wouldn't do anything.
All right, but what about Brian Snitker in 2021? Right? He was almost on the verge of getting fired. If it wasn't for the Braves winning the series against the Mets in 2021, right before the deadline, they were sellers, and he probably would have gotten fired. So all of a sudden, he was a good manager? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, again, we went over the Braves' moves. All of a sudden, Snitker became a great manager because the guy started to play better. Like, I just don't get, like, this is the thing I just don't understand. These guys get paid millions of dollars. They're professionals. If you don't play well, you're going to lose, right? Name me one player other than Brandon Nimmo that is playing to the back of their baseball cards in this Mets lineup. Let's start with the lineup first.
I would say right now, really the only 4 or 5 guys that are playing to expectations and above, I would say Brandon Nimmo.
Okay.
I would argue Kodai Senga is playing what's kind of been
just the lineup first. We'll go into
the lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, really, in terms of to expectations to above average to offer.
I'm not even bringing Tommy Pham.
I would say Brandon Nimmo, And I mean, I would argue Pete Alonso, say what you want about the average, but the power, the OPS, maybe the, a couple singles would be nice, get that average up. He's been very, big on singles and home runs. So if we can start to get a couple extra base hits, sure. But he's still having a good year in terms of power and home runs. So I would say Alonso. And I mean, yeah, you said Tommy Pham, and that's really it. I mean, guys like Marte, Canha. I mean, Lindor's having a weird year. The home runs and RBIs are there, but everything else is
exactly. You brought up Alonso, right? Alonso's average has to come up, but he also has terrible numbers in the clutch, right? So that average and clutch numbers. I mean, I want Alonso to hit home runs when there's guys on base. I want to see in that late game that he hits a 3-run homer to give us the lead or tie the ball game, right? I think I checked. Hold on. Let me say. Hold on.
You can look at WP.
Yeah, I checked it earlier because I remember you told me the other day. Find a stat with Alonso. So Alonso is batting .209 with 2 home runs and 7 RBIs with runners in scoring position or runners on base. Excuse me. So that's clutch situations. So that means that he's batting near the Mendoza line on average. So that means he's not even getting the bat on the ball for the most part.
No.
In situations with runners on. And he's not hitting a lot of home runs. He has 22 home runs this year? So the other 20 are in situations where now they could be with guys on base, but it's not in what they consider a clutch moment. Like in the 4th inning, he can hit a 3-run homer to give us the lead. That's not a clutch moment considering what the stat. That's why I don't like analytical stats. That's why I was trying to get with you when it comes to that, because I think Alonso has an
You could also look at WPA, and I mean, I know comparing two guys, obviously Pete Alonso so far this year has a 1.72 WPA, where if you look at a guy like Francisco Lindor, he has a 0.33.
Yeah. But again, I don't even know what the fuck that is, to be honest with you.
Probability added.
Okay, great. And WAR is supposed to be the greatest stat ever, and it's stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I think WAR is.
That's what I'm saying. See, the analytical stat with Alonso, where you just found the stat that looks great for Alonso and terrible for Lindor. Well, I can tell you that Lindor is hitting .293 with 5 home runs in the clutch and has about 18 RBIs in clutch situations. So he's been more clutch than Alonso. So when a big spot comes up, I'd rather have Lindor than Alonso with those numbers. But you can look at it and say, well, Alonso has great numbers early on in the game because in the 4th inning, he might hit a 3-run homer to give them a 4-2 lead. But that doesn't count as a clutch stat because it's in the early part of the game. And a clutch stat is looking from the 6th inning on. And Lindor has way better numbers than Alonso, even last year. So and that's why I don't like a lot of these crazy stats, because of the fact that the only reason why I bring it up, because I know you love the analytical stuff.
Yeah, right.
And it's important to you, which I appreciate because you're knowledgeable in it and you can teach me every day on it because I don't know a lot of it, and I'm not going to lie to you. But you also have to look at it this way, right? You can find a stat. You can find 5 stats for any player and find something that is better than the other person on that team that might be a better player. It's just the way it goes. Now, I see people in the chat says, give me Alonso every day of the week in a clutch situation. You sure about that? Because
this year he has the 2. I mean, it's a grand slam, the walk off.
He's 2 games.
He's been getting better. I will say
He's been getting better. And listen, Alonso has more years to go to catch up to Lindor in years in Major League Baseball, a couple of years. But again, when you want to bring out stats and stats that doesn't involve average RBIs and home runs, which, you want to bring up slugging on base, we can talk about that because they are important. OPS, I'm sorry, you can use that because it really doesn't use average, but it kind of does. It's weird to me because if you hit a lot of home runs, that OPS is probably going to go up a little bit more. If you don't hit a lot of home runs, say if you hit a lot of home runs and your average is down, your OPS is going to probably struggle a little bit. But if your average is up and you hit a little less home runs, your OPS is going to go up. So it's a flawed stat any way you look at it. But I'm sorry, if my shortstop, who is going to have better offensive numbers than probably every other shortstop in baseball, almost. And probably in 2 out of 3 of the major stats. If I tell you without saying the name, 27 home runs and 110 RBIs. Most people who never care about average, but finally all of a sudden care about average because Lindor's batting 210, that's when people are going to bring up average. But for years, nobody cares about average. Oh, average don't matter, just home runs and RBIs. All of a sudden now, people are like, oh, I can't believe how bad Lindor is. He's batting 210, but he's on pace to hit 30 home runs and knocking over 105 RBIs.
The same
thing with Alonso. If Alonso hits 45 home runs and knocks in 125 RBIs, but he bats 220 on the year, that's a good season. I mean, we you know what I'm saying? Then let's just get Kyle Schwarber's, because that don't win you anything either. And I hate picking on the lineup because the lineup is the least of our worries in 2023. Yeah, I agree. Making $30 million a year. But here, you're focused on the money. You don't focus on the stats of a player. You got to remember, when Francisco Lindor was traded to the Mets, there was about 4 or 5 shortstops that were going to be free agents that following year. The reason why the Mets made that trade was to get ahead of the curve, because there was a lot of people, a lot of reporters in that year that there was going to be about 5 or 6 shortstops that were going to be free agents, that 2 or 3 of them were projected to get over $300 million. Does everybody remember what happened that offseason? Try to remember. Right? That same year, remember the whole thing with the owners colluding because there was a ton of players still on the free agent market that weren't getting signed because owners didn't want to spend big money, to reset the payrolls, to reset the contract, the money that was going to these players because it was getting outrageous. There was Correa, Lindor, Seager. Those 3 guys were expected to make $300 million. But because right, Correa couldn't even get a long-term deal. He had to take a 2-year deal with an option. And that was the same year he was a free agent with Lindor. So Cohen thought that if a lot of these players are going to be free agents, a lot of teams are going to be, there's going to be a lot of competition for these guys. So the price is going to go up. Unfortunately, nobody could predict that all these owners were going to collude and not give these players huge contracts. Even though a year later after that, teams started to give crazy contracts again. So we have to remember that. But when it comes to money and a player's stats, if you thought Francisco Lindor was going to hit 35 home runs and 120 RBIs, you let me know what year he did that in Cleveland.
Well, that's the thing. He's never been this career, $341 million guy. He's never been this.
People are talking about he should be. What should he be better in besides average? He's great defensively. He hits 25 home runs a year, which that's it on average and pace of what he does in his career. With I think 1 year in Cleveland, he hit over 30 home runs, right? But if this year he ends up with 25 home runs and 110 RBIs, 2 out of the 3 years he hit that benchmark, and you're gonna tell me that it's his fault that the Mets are not winning?
No, it's not him.
It's not just him. It's not. He's not the only problem. Look, he has to be better in different stats. Look, you can pick a player and say he's got to be better there. Alonso's got to be better there. But what about Marte? You want to know this team's big problem? Marte is the biggest problem in this lineup. Not Vogelback, not Canna, because if you're counting on Canna, because last time I checked, what was the problems last year? Third base, DH, and catcher. The last time I checked, catcher and third base had a hell of a lot more production this year than it did last year. So what is the Mets' problem? Probably pitching, right? We can blame everybody you want offensively. It goes right back to the pitching. Because we're scoring 4.4 runs per game this year. I know it's skewed, but last year we were doing the same amount of runs per game, and we won 101 games. So, Hayden, we talked about it, buddy.
Pitching wins championships. It's that obvious. And I mean, and listen, I think when it comes down to Lindor, listen, I'll take the 25 home runs. I'll take the 100 and something RBIs. I'd like to see the stats of strikeouts go down. Lindor is striking out a lot. He's, fouling a lot of pitches off. I like to see the strikeouts go down. I like to see the walks go up. I'd like to see the average go up, the LBP go up, the OPS go up, and all the other, deep analytical stats go up. Like I said, his defense is fine. Okay, sure. Like I said, say we want about leadership. Okay. I know you guys are talking about that in the chat, but like I said, I mean, the contract, that's one thing. Like I said, hopefully he could chill out on the strikeouts. He's striking out a lot.
Correct.
Like I said, Lindor's never been this career or, MVP caliber. I don't know why people got that mindset. He's never been this 330 home runs, 130 RBIs, 900 OPS. He's never done that in Cleveland.
That's Aaron Judge.
2018, he had his best career OBP was 352.
350, yep.
And I'm sorry, but Pete Alonso's had that twice so far in his 4-year career. So, and that's for a power guy.
Players.
Love to strike. And I agree with that. But, I mean, listen, 341, is that an overpay? Absolutely.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, we all agree with
that. I mean, I don't think anyone on this roster would be getting 341. I mean, unless they're, even in MLB. I mean, you can say if you want about Ohtani and maybe one other guy if I'm forgetting. But, Lindor, and everyone's saying it, I would fine him. If I was the owner, I would fine him every time he gets left. He needs to stop hitting lefty and go against a righty. And that's the thing. Because obviously, I mean, obviously I don't need to tell you guys, but there's more righties in baseball than there is lefties. And Lindor obviously loves batting lefty against righties. And then, I mean, how often is this team facing left-handed pitching? Once every other week. And then Lindor needs to bat righty. I don't care about Buck's philosophy of lefty on righty. I don't care. Bat as a righty. His swing looks so much better. He looks so ugly as a lefty. He swings in the dirt. He's chasing. He's like, his bat is like going like 20 feet out that way. He's getting in the dirt. He's fouling pitches off. He's rolling over way too many balls. Bat as a righty. And, I mean, I read the statistics before. I didn't save it, which was pretty stupid of me. But, I mean, we're talking a pretty significant difference in terms of home run average LVP. And I don't know why. And, I mean, Rob or anyone in the chat, if they want to ask, why doesn't Chavez and Buck and this coaching staff look?
I think they have.
And then why does Lindor change it up?
I do think some of these guys are so fucking stubborn that they've done it their whole life since they learned it. I know, but we know all these players are prima donnas. All these players are stuck up, cocky. They think they know better than everybody else. And I know you didn't watch the game today, but on the broadcast, I think it was I think it was Tommy Edman. One of the players on the Cardinals was a switch hitter and stopped batting left-handed and started batting right-handed only, and it changed the season around.
Exactly.
Now, he's not on the level of a Lindor type of player. But, I truly believe somebody in his head, somebody in that dugout, especially Eric Chavez, who seemed to get through to these Mets hitters last year. For whatever reason, it's not this year, even though he's not the hitting coach anymore. But you don't think Eric Chavez went up to Frankie and says, listen, why don't you just try batting right-handed a little bit? Maybe a week. See what happens. How about the Houston series? Just bat right-handed. See what happens. If you look bad, all right, maybe you suck. And that's it. You can't hit right-handed pitching. I don't know. But, I mean, try it. What's the worst that can happen? You can be as worse as you are now? It can't get worse. So, with that said, we focus on the lineup. Everybody wants Vogelback off this team. We all can agree with that. But Vogelback's the least of our worries. Canna, again, I think Marte being basically a zero, like his power is basically gone. And that's a problem. Same thing with McNeil. McNeil's batting 30 points less.
I really want
no power whatsoever. Again, I was scared about McNeil.
I really want to discuss McNeil because I want to throw something. No, of course not. But McNeil just looks so off at the plate. I mean, and I wondered, I'm like, is it his stance? I looked at the stance from 2021. I looked at the stance from last year, 2019, and this year. It's not the stance. The stance is the same. I think lately we've been seeing that launch angle swing, and he's popping a lot of balls up, and he's not going to the opposite way enough. I mean, how many times last year did he have opposite field hits to the left-hand side? A lot. And we've been seeing a lot of balls just hit to the second baseman.
It's not the shift. It has nothing to do with the shift either.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with the shift. And I don't know why he's not going to the opposite way. He has no power. I don't care about the 3 home runs. McNeil's not a home run hitter. That's never been his play game. He's a table setter. He's a high average, high OBP guy. If we give you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 home runs a season, phenomenal. Great. But I don't care about that. His power's gone. I mean, he's not getting any extra base hits. He's pretty much been singles or walks. He's not getting any extra base hits. He's not, ripping balls down the line like we saw a lot last year. He's not slapping the ball the other way. He's not looking like your batting champion. I mean, how many infield hits does he have this year? Like 1? I mean, he had 40 last year. He was the king of infield hits. This whole Mets team was, and they're not getting really any infield hits. He's good. He's a speedy guy. Okay. I mean, he's chasing a lot more pitches outside the zone, and that is something that has been he's a guy that has great plate discipline, like a Nimmo. He doesn't chase outside the zone. But, he's not swinging first pitch as much. He's popping a lot of balls up. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just – listen, I don't – and he's starting to get a little worrisome. I am starting to worry with him. He got this big contract. What?
2021 McNeil.
And that's what I'm starting to worry about. He got this big contract, and you talk about a mental guy. Jeff McNeil's your quality. Jeff McNeil, you're literally your evidence right there. I mean, you see him, he grounds out the first and ripping off the helmet, dropping F-bombs, cursing and going nuts. Yeah. And I think right now, he needs to be batted lower in the lineup. And like Rob said, and I've looked at the statistics, he's much better batting like 6, 7 in the lineup than batting 6.
He said it last year. He likes batting 6 or 7.
Yeah, and that's why I think McNeil needs to bat lower in the lineup, and I just think he needs to work with Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez and the hitting instructors. Just the ability to go to the opposite way more. I don't think it's the pitch clock. That has nothing to do with it. I just think that he's just a guy who, it's nothing with the shift or the pitch clock. He's just not going to the opposite way as much, and he's not getting a lot of pretty much. 5 things. He's not going to the opposite field as much as he used to. He's not getting as many infield hits. Yep. Hitting to the right-hand side way too much. Ground balls have been his thing. He's not getting any extra base hits, and he doesn't really have any power. But power with McNeil's never been a thing because launch angle and exit velocity, that doesn't matter with Jeff McNeil. I mean, he gets 30-mile-per-hour doubles. I mean, that's his thing. But, we've seen some lights. I mean, we saw the Yankees game where he had that opposite field double to bring in 2 runs. Okay. Yeah. But McNeil's a guy that you really need to start getting warmed up. I mean, McNeil's one. And if there's anyone in this and if there's anyone in this lineup that I have confidence in, I think it is McNeil. Marte's been underperforming a lot. Miss Michael Conforto yet. Marcana's not, performing very well. Say what I don't care about Vogelbach's useless home run when you're up 5-1. Yeah. I don't care. Vogelbach's not doing anything. You're not getting, really the only upgrade you really have is the catcher position from Francisco Alvarez. I mean, like I said, this lineup is underperforming. If you're with the exclusion of Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, everyone in this lineup is underperforming. Marte, Canna, McNeil, Vogelbach.
Yeah. Tommy Pham.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Pham's literally been like your,
every ball he hits is hard.
And that's why I think this is like a 2021 season because who carried your year? Jonathan VR. I mean, nobody expected him to be second in home runs and be the king of your offense. And it's literally Jonathan VR. And I mean, this seems worse than 2021 by far because at least they had the pitching and at least it was the pitching. It was the pitching that was good. It was the offense that was bad. And this year they kind of switched around. But yeah, that's the thing. And Bill, I agree with that. McNeil is a guy who hits for average and extra base hits. And if he isn't doing that, he's not going to be noticeable. And that's the thing. If he was batting 305 and maybe raise the OPS a little bit just because he's not getting the extra base hits. If he was batting like 305 instead of what is he batting, like 270? Yeah, that'd be noticeable. And I didn't expect McNeil to come in and bat like 330 or, be like Luis Arias this year. I mean, imagine Matt had Luis Arias. That would have been
what a trade by the Marlins.
That would have been tip of the cap to the Marlins. Luis Arias, I mean, he's something else.
About McNeil, if you're gonna bat 275, I need to see some more power then. But we know we don't have that. That is the one issue.
Put him in the gym.
Yeah, and it's like McNeil's a table setter. He's similar to Nimmo, who's a guy who gets that tough hit, works the count, gets that tough hit, gets on base, and let the other guys, right? Nimmo and McNeil are the two biggest table setters in the Mets lineup. That's what they're supposed to do. I don't want to see Nimmo cracking home runs all over the place because he got into trouble with that a couple of weeks ago where he was in that big slump because he was trying to hit home runs every time at bat, swinging at first pitches, which is not Nimmo's game. Same thing with McNeil. When McNeil tries to start hitting home runs and that launch angle swing, you're not a run producer, buddy. Stop trying to be. Right? You got your contract. You got your contract for being a 300-plus hitter who gets on base, gets his, doubles every now and then, but gets on base for the run producers. That is the biggest thing. The reason why the bottom of the lineup for the Mets last year was actually good was because guys who kept on batting sixth in the lineup, like Jeff McNeil, was getting on base for Mark Canha, who, when Mark Canha was going good, got those runs in. And not saying Mark Canha is the end-all be-all, but that was why the bottom of the lineup kind of survived because of that. And the problem, again, is that when you have Marte, who's a shell of himself right now, Lindor is getting more pressure because there is nobody on base. Because how many times Marte was on base? And this is another reason why I think Lindor had a really good year last year. Marte was on base a lot last year when Lindor was up at the plate. That messes with the pitcher's mind a little bit. And maybe Lindor got a couple more balls to hit that he probably wouldn't have like he did, like he's not getting this year because Marte hasn't been on base as much.
The only thing Marte's doing is stealing more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he hasn't been batting second lately either. That's been the other problem.
He did what did he bat today?
He batted second today, but he just got back to second, I think, in the Yankee series. So there wasn't that security blanket for Lindor.
And I mean that's a big thing. Is Marte is a guy who definitely messes with the pitcher's mind. I'd like to see Nimmo run more, but Marte's been running a lot this season. And he's a guy, if you're a pitcher on the mound and you have a guy that's on the base that's a threat, that that's gonna mess with you. You're gonna turn back a little bit and focus on him, maybe 5-10% instead of 100% of the batter. And that's a big thing. And I think guys like Marte, need to step up a little bit. And I get it. He was a big part to the success last year. You look at what happened when he went down in September, but he needs to step up now. He needs to get on base and he needs to be that, whether they're going to play small ball, we know my opinion on that. Trust me, whether he gets on and they play small ball, steals, runs over, scores in a sac fly, whatever. He needs to get on more. And do I trust him batting number 2 now? We'll see. I mean, we'll see how he does in the next couple series, maybe 1, 2, 3 more series. And then maybe that'll kind of be the determination. Do you want him batting second or lower in the order? But I don't really want to open this door. But does anyone miss JD Davis and Michael Conforto? I mean, does anyone want to tell me how they're doing in San Francisco? I mean, I told everyone on my live streams.
Who was the biggest fan of JD Davis?
Everyone on my live streams since last year at this time. Wait for JD Davis. Have patience. Hayden, you're wrong. Stop with the analytics. I don't care that he hits the ball hard. And I get it. I say, it's a result-oriented game. But at least when you're hitting the ball hard, good things eventually will happen. And you will
like Tommy Pham.
And Tommy Pham, too. He was hitting the ball hard, but he was out. JD Davis. Let's look at his statistics this year. Defensively, he's actually really warmed up.
Big supporter of JD Davis last year.
Loved him.
I loved JD Davis. Look at his 2019 with the Mets when he played every day.
That's why the Mets should have never. Think about it like this. Everyone says, oh, my God, Conforto and JD played so bad last year. Okay, so did McNeil in 2021. Did fans give up on 2020? Correct. Nope. A lot of players. JD Davis was great in 2019, great in 2020, decent in 2021. Okay. Last year, didn't play. JD Davis right now, 288 average, 369 OBP, 488.
I'm sorry.
288 average, 369 OBP, 488 slugging, and an 857 OPS, 10 home runs, 40 RBIs. Defensively, if I may say, he's in the 93rd percentile in OAA, which is pretty darn good. I don't know where that third base or wherever position he's playing, JD Davis defense has been with New York. But, he's hitting for power. He's hitting the ball to the opposite field. We saw that 2019 thing. And, they screwed JD Davis. They didn't put him in the lineup enough, and JD's a guy that needs the consistent playing time, and fans didn't want to be patient with JD. And, look about it. Honestly, I'd rather have JD go 0 for 4 in the Mets lineup than have Vogelbach and those other bums stand there and do nothing. How about Michael Conforto? And say what you want about Conforto. Oh, Conforto's a really weird guy. You can make a lot of cases with Conforto about just not the ability, inability to go to the opposite field and the strikeouts and the walks and the ground outs. Say what you want, but 12 home runs, 37 ribbies. The average 241, OBP 339, OPS 768, but that slash line is essentially better than 7 of the 9 Mets in that lineup. Defensively, he hasn't been great, which is kind of interesting about. But
speaking of JD Davis, so I'm looking at his 2019 stats. He played 140 games with the Mets. Remember, this was his first year when Brody, by the way, traded for JD Davis from Houston. Right, 140 games, 22 home runs, batted .307 with 57 RBIs. Now, remember, the Mets didn't really have a good year. There was not much in that lineup besides Alonso in 2021. Lindor was having a terrible year in 2021. 2019, sorry. There was nobody else there except for Alonso. Nobody else that was really good in the Mets lineup. That wasn't really good. Todd Frazier, can't wait to have him in the lineup, right? 57 RBIs, 22 home runs, batted .307, 369 on base, slugging .527, OPS 895. That was pretty good. And I was a huge fan of JD Davis. Remember, in 2021, JD Davis hurt his wrist. Wasn't the same player. I'm sorry, in 2020, right? Was it 2020? Oh, no,
it was 2021.
2021 in Philadelphia, opening day. He got hit by a pitch, and it changed. He couldn't play the rest of the year because he wasn't the same player. Mets didn't give him a lot of a chance. Early in 2022, gone. Bye. See ya. Done. And that was basically it. So I was a big proponent of keeping JD Davis. I liked JD Davis from day one. I was a big and you were too. I think you came around on him. You didn't like him at first, but you came around on him.
With JD, I wasn't last year I wasn't happy with the performances, but we knew JD Davis, we knew the expected metrics, and we saw the hard hit metrics. I hate to use the term unlucky, but he was hitting the ball hard, and eventually he was going to find his groove. And I don't know, maybe it's just he's a guy that needs to be in the lineup every day. And obviously they were teaching guys like Naquin and Ruff and Vogelbach instead of JD. And then, because obviously they took over, but, I think Epler just kind of, I don't want to say lost patience or, JD isn't an Epler guy, but, you look at him in San Francisco and, he's having a great year. That's an interesting ballpark to play in, obviously. The dimensions are weird. But, even a guy like Michael Conforto, at least the homers are there. At least the RBIs are there. And, look at the triple slash line you have. It's like I said, it's better than, 6 or 7 of the players in this lineup right now. I get it. Conforto.
I'm not going to kill the Mets, though, with Conforto because they offered him a contract. He didn't take it.
True. It's JD I'm mainly upset about. Conforto, Conforto, it is what it is. He had a great time here. Unfortunately, 2021 was just the worst time for him to have a slump. Say what you want about his track record and the walks and the strikeouts and the ground balls. It's JD that I'm very upset about. Because imagine JD Davis in this lineup right now. He could be the DH. You could put him at third periodically. You could let Vientos play every day in AAA. Maybe even Beatty too. And then you could have power in this lineup of Francisco Alvarez, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, JD Davis. And that's why I'm really upset that Mets fans jumped the gun way too much on JD. And, they never gave him an opportunity. Mets fans say that. No, they didn't. They threw him in the lineup once a week, twice a week, and the DH, and then they, just shipped him off. They didn't give him the opportunity.
Dominic Smith got more opportunities than J.D. Davis in that same year where Dominic Smith got to the minors and J.D. Davis was traded.
Yeah.
So, and look, again, this is not a reprimandum on the lineup because the lineup for the last 3 to almost a month now has been performing pretty well. Now they're going to have their spots where they're not going to score runs, which is like every lineup, but they've been scoring at a better pace than they were in April, and they're losing more. So it's always going to come back down to the pitching. We're back to the pitching, but we're about an hour and a half in already. But I wanted to go right to the Houston Astros series Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Everything's to be determined pitching-wise for the Mets, which makes no sense. But Scherzer is on the mound tomorrow. It should be Scherzer, Verlander, and I think Tyler McGill, if I'm not mistaken. So
I don't think so, because he pitched yesterday or 2 days ago.
So it should be Senga, right?
So it'd be
Scherzer, Verlander, Senga? These off days kind of blew up the rotation. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if Buck is planning on going ahead. So it'd be Scherzer, Verlander. So no Carrasco, no Senga. So yeah, maybe it will be McGill.
It has to be.
I mean, Quintana wouldn't come back. So yeah,
he won't be back until July.
Yeah, it'd have to be McGill, I guess, against Christian Javier. Oh, great. Yeah, it's going to be a fun game. I'll hit the Mets.
All right. So say if it is, excuse me, Scherzer, Verlander, McGill. All right. You got your aces, quote unquote aces, right? Again, Scherzer, don't throw your slider. You might actually survive the night.
Pretty much.
I don't know. He looked good against the Yankees, but that lineup for the Yankees is absolutely dog shit. So I don't know. Again, they don't got Yordan Alvarez. Their offense has been struggling, except for Tucker. So we'll see what happens there. I'm gonna be one of the idiots on YouTube because I'm probably gonna get a lot of slack for this, and I'm waiting for the comments probably now or after the stream, and a lot of lovely messages from people. The Mets got 6 games this week. It is only a 3-game series against the Phillies, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I believe, right? Okay. 6 games this week. Astros, Phillies. Phillies are hot. I don't trust them at all. And they seem to never beat the Mets, so we'll see how that works out. So I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm probably going on the limb, and the branch is going to break and probably break my neck on this, but what the fuck? This team has already disappointed me enough in my lifetime. Why not a little bit more? I think the Mets are going to go 4-2. Now, however you want to change up that 4-2. Now, could we get swept by the Astros? And, lose 2 out of 3 against the Astros and sweep the Phillies? I wouldn't be shocked. The Mets play the Phillies well. The Mets dominate the Phillies in Philly, and Mark Cannon is probably going to go off. So anybody who bet over on Mark Cannon or everything. He's playing all 3 games no matter what because he's just always good against the Phillies. I do think somehow, some way, the Mets are going to be 4-2. And the only reason why I say that is because every time when we completely throw this team under a bus and we leave them for dead, they find a way to, stick their arm out a little bit and say, hey, I'm still alive, show a pulse. Not saying that's going to turn the season around. I'm not going to go that crazy. I mean, I'm not drunk yet. But I do have a feeling that they'll go 4-2. Again, is that going to change anything? Yeah. We get closer to 500. Wonderful. I mean, that's all. That's your point right now. Get the 500 and just stay within striking distance of the wild card, right? A lot of the teams we're facing this month, the Phillies are one of them, are teams that are in front of us in the wild card. The Giants, the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, the Brewers. These are all teams that you win series. I'm not saying sweep. Win series against those teams that are in front of you by the end of this stretch, say 2 weeks, and I said July 1st. If you win those series, then you can be in the hunt. Not saying that's going to get you anywhere, but you can be in the hunt where you can have a conversation if you're going to be a buyer or a seller. Now, that's a pessimistic guess because I'm not confident in it. I was right about the Yankees being a split because I thought it was a joke the way these two teams played. The Cardinals series shocked me, to be honest with you. I thought that they were going to take at least 2 out of 3. And Bill, I'm glad you said that. The only way I survive a Mets season, and I know a lot of you probably believe this, is to have a little bit of hope, but not enough where you have to sit in the corner and be in the corner and shake yourself to make sure you don't go insane. You need padded walls in your room to be a Mets fan. It's just that obvious. I'm 35 years old. I can only imagine. And look, the closest I ever got to a World Series was 2000 and 2015. All right. 2000, I had to sit in school with a bunch of annoying Yankee fans after we lost the World Series. Trust me, if that doesn't traumatize anybody, you know what? If mental health was a thing back then, I would be on Sports Illustrated. That's how mentally fucked I was in 2000. I truly believe my emotional disturbance is based on 2000. Just like that. I swear to God. Because all I cared about was baseball back then. 2015, I had a life, girlfriend, I was working. So it wasn't the end all be all, but that shit hurt.
Yeah.
So I know, people that are in there, you got to be at least 45, probably 50 now to see a Mets, actually remember a World Series for the Mets that won in 86, right? You have to be in your 50s.
Yeah.
Even though it's like 34 years, 35, 36 years since they won. So I appreciate the people that gone through it because we all have. Even the young fans haven't really seen much. But in my opinion, to stay sane, I got to be a pessimistic Met fan. The Yankees just lost, by the way, and got swept by the Red Sox. That makes you feel better. They're out of the playoffs at this point now. So
season's over.
It ain't looking good for the second highest payroll in baseball. Just saying. So I don't expect much. I try to be this fan that doesn't go in with high hopes so I don't crash and burn. I try to be a pessimist, not really pessimistic, but like a little bit of optimism, but with skepticism. I guess that's pessimism, right? But that's where I'm bordering around sanity here with this fucking team. So I'm gonna go 4-2 because that gives me a reason to watch the games. Put it that way. Even though I have a YouTube channel and I have to kind of keep going here, or what's the point? But it gives me a reason to watch the games. It gives me a reason to stay up late, watch the games, not get any sleep before work, go and work mad. Typical Mets fan. But that's my go ahead on that. Hayden, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. The Mets go 4-2. I will come on a stream and shotgun a beer for y'all. I don't know.
I'll Venmo you money for it.
Yo, Venmo. All right. Honestly, then I better pray the Mets do that then.
I'm buying you a keg.
I'm more than fine with that. I mean, like I said, I agree with what you said, Rob. Like I said, in baseball, really the only fan bases that I think can brag, really, I would say are older Yankee fans and Cardinal fans. Those are the only teams that historically have always played well. I mean, Astros, 10 years ago, they were nothing. I mean, you can say what about the Dodgers, sure. Maybe the Giants, the Athletics earlier on, believe it or not. But really, it's only been a handful of baseball teams that have always been consistent through their franchise years. And you hope now, new ownership, the Mets, they can try and get away from, losing and win and, have a good culture. And, it still sucks that, we're in year 3 of the Cohen time and all my friends still text me, well, Mets, you guys suck, highest payroll in base. And, it sucks. It really does. And, I think Mets fans are losing patience. And I think that's the thing. This team needs to get it. I don't want to wait till next year. I don't want to wait till 2025. I don't want to wait till 2026. Cohen said 3 to 5 years, great, and that was probably a dumb thing for him to say.
Last year hurt.
Regardless of that, I'd rather the Mets go out there and give me 101 wins and give me 5 good months than collapse in the NLCS, because what's the point if I'm going to see them finish 70, 86, and 76? There's no point. I'd rather have 5 good months and them collapse in the wild card or the NLDS, because they'll at least get there. Like the expression is, to take the girl home, you got to get to the dance, and that's really essentially what the Mets need to do.
Oh, college! I'm sorry.
And that's the thing. So we'll see. Right now, obviously, I'm 21 years old. I haven't really born in 2002, so a little late for 2000. I was a little young for 06, but I was there. 07, 08, those collapses are rough, of course. And, really, besides 2015 and 2016 and last year, the younger Met fans. And you could say one thing about the Mets is they have a very, very good and knowledgeable and large young population for fans. You go to Citi Field, you see a lot of younger fans. You go on platforms like YouTube and Spotify, and you see people that are 21, even 16 having podcasts. I don't see that for any other fan base.
There's a lot of young Mets fans.
But there's a lot of intelligent Mets fans, and I will give them that. And Mets fans are smart enough to know that they deserve better than what they're playing right now.
Yep.
This team should be better, and that's where the Mets, realize that. So we'll see how that goes. Realistically, I'm not optimistic. I really don't have much optimism. Houston's a very good ball club. They have great hitters. Yeah, Yordan Alvarez isn't there, but Yankees didn't have Judge, so what difference does it make? You got good pitching matchups. If you look at the Mets and Astros just for literally like 30 seconds just to take a dive to it, you got some decent matchups there. Obviously, the pitching matchups should be good for the Mets, but, Scherzer and Verlander haven't really been there a whole lot this year, and we know Houston destroyed us. Houston destroyed us last year, both home and away, and everyone,
And that was a 101-win team.
Yeah, and, obviously tomorrow, Scherzer versus Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown's been having a pretty good season, good rookie campaign. Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, lefty, having a really good season. At least Lindor will bat righty. And then, it says the final game is going to be McGill versus Christian Javier. All 3 of those guys have ERAs under 3, and I hate ERA, but still, it's the point. And I get it. You don't have Yordan Alvarez. He's hurt. Brantley's been out. But
no Alvarez, like you said.
Like I said, no Alvarez. And I know they got swept against Cincinnati, but, right now they're going to need to figure it out. Like I said, I don't have much expectations. I think they'll take 1 in Houston, and then Phillies have been good. I hate to break it to y'all. They're good teams, and I had all you want because you don't like them, but they are a good team. Offensively, they've woken up. Pitching-wise, they've woken up. Their bullpen, guys like Matt Strom, Connor Brogdon, yeah, they've been much alert, and they're playing better than the Mets, so who really cared, So it's home. I know the Mets have played well against the Phillies, and it's really the only series that they really dominated in so far recently. But even then, with just them, the Mets look like them from last year in the first half, and I don't want them to continue to take that over. So I think they're going to go 2-4. I think they'll go 2-4. I think they'll take 1 in Houston and 1 in Philly, and we'll come back on here next Sunday with the same thing, same motions in place, and repeat ourselves.
Yeah, I'm watching Florida or an Oral Roberts College World Series, and they were about to
get that on. Yeah, I'll tell you, college baseball has been phenomenal. Obviously,
I'm sorry, I was just watching it. I turned it on, and Florida and Oral Roberts almost got into a fight because they hit a batter, and you saw the guy say "fuck you," and then the pitcher said "fuck you back," and I thought they were really gonna go after it. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you, college baseball. Obviously, I go to Stetson, the Grom School, as everyone calls it. And they're out of it, but college baseball has been very exciting. Like I've been watching a lot of Roberts, TCU, Florida. College baseball has been exciting. If you guys have a chance to watch it, I would say throw on ESPN and watch a little bit.
Yeah, players that actually play with heart. That would
be nice. I like the Mets.
Easy. It's too early to look if Wheeler's pitching yet because it's still a week away. He might be, but if he pitches the next 2 days, he'll pitch against the Mets.
Let me see if he's pitching. So he didn't pitch today, I could tell you that. But even Wheeler hasn't been great this
Not
year.
really.
He's definitely struggled. Phillies have an off day tomorrow. They play the Braves, so it'll be Suarez, Nola, Walker. So yeah, you probably are going to get Wheeler. You'll probably get Wheeler for the first game. You'll miss out on Walker. You'll miss out on Nola. So you'll probably get Wheeler, bullpen, and Suarez.
Suarez. Well, the Mets will probably have the pitching matchups then, whatever that means.
Projected stats, of course.
Yeah. All right. So once again, guys, it was a long Shea Bridge show, but I think it was well needed to get to voice everybody's frustration. I'm glad you guys were here to hang out with us. The Shea Bridge show, once again, every week. Most likely it will be on Sundays, depending on when the Mets play. If they play a day game, we'll be on at night at this time at 8 o'clock. Or if they play a Sunday night game, we'll be on a little bit earlier before the game. And of course, tomorrow, a couple of the guys, the Mets Roundtable podcast tomorrow, Monday 6, tomorrow 6 p.m. because the Mets play Houston tomorrow at 8 p.m. So a few hours before the game, we'll be on. I believe, Hayden, you're going to be on
Yes.
with us tomorrow. All right, so Hayden, Chris of CP Sports Pod is going to be on. New York Sports Pod is going to be on, and we're going to see if Subway to Shea or the Shea and Sons podcast. See if those guys pop on as well. We'll see how many we get tomorrow, and we'll guys let you know. So again, the Mets are in turmoil, but they have 2 weeks to turn it around. Again, my point of either sellers or buyers be 3 games or less by July 1st. That will tell me they have just enough there to at least go for it enough to do something at the deadline. I think that's important. If 4 games, you can go either way. Anything more than that, you might as well sell what you can and get prospects back from some players that could be available. So, Hayden, your final thoughts before you go. If you're doing anything with your channel, let everybody know.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Mets Talk with Hayden, of course. If you're watching on my channel or Rob's channel, definitely subscribe to all the channels. Like, comment, subscribe, notifications, whatever else you could do, please do that. Let's get to 800 subscribers. We are almost there. That is obviously the goal is to get to 800. So please subscribe. Mets Talk with Hayden. Follow me on Twitter at Mets Hayden. Just doing live streams and stuff. I will be going away. After Tuesday, I will be going to a couple other ballparks in Toronto, see Blue Jays, the Cubs and White Sox in Chicago, Comerica, Detroit Tigers, and potentially Cleveland for the Guardians. So that'll definitely be there. So I don't know, maybe I'll post some pictures on my Twitter or Instagram if you guys want to share, but I'll definitely come on here. I'll just be kind of in a different location. Obviously no hotels, so that's good because we know my luck with South Carolina hotels on the stream, but I'll have good Wi-Fi, don't worry. But with that said, may do a live stream tomorrow. We'll see. I mean, if anything, it'd just be repeating what Rob and I kind of just said on here, but it's kind of been like the Mets season so far. So I mean, optimism is not high. There's really not much to take, but we'll see how it goes. Like I said, if the Mets want to play in a ballpark that's empty and no fans, and you may expect that next month if they continue playing the way they are. Billy Epler, Steve Cohen, Buck Showalter, every player, 1 through 26, 1 through 40 on the 40-man roster, wake the fuck up. That's all I have to say because it's this simple. Everything is right in front of this team, and they're looking at it, and then they turn around and look at the other way. It's that simple. Pitch, pitch, pitch. That's all you need. It's crazy that we're sitting here begging for our starters in Scherzer and Verlander to go out and throw 7 innings of a quality start, making that much money. They're your ace, and you're asking that much from them. That's very, very upsetting. So, I really hope they could turn it around. I get it. It's a 162-game season for a reason. But you know what? Sooner rather than later, they can get hot, but will it be too late? And, of course, we saw that in 2019. That was definitely the case. So I will put both channel links to Rob's and mine in the chat. So if you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. And otherwise, appreciate Rob for hosting. Obviously, me, the co-host. And I guess we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, everyone enjoyed their Father's Day, their weekend. And I love GM. Let's go Mets, guys.
Well said. Again, happy Father's Day, whatever's left of it. Unfortunately, the Mets decided to, screw you over on Father's Day, but, it is the Mets. Can't expect much positivity at this point right now. But, again, just like Hayden says, where is the desperation, right? Let's fucking go, right? Play your hearts out. I want to see good quality games. You might lose to a better team in the Astros, but can you lose a game where you play well all around and you just lose? I would take that every day of the week, knowing that they played well and lose to a better team in the Astros, right? Like I said, 4-2. I'm expecting that. How about that, right? I'm not, I'll probably be looking like an idiot by the end of the week, but why not? I'm a Mets fan. I'm used to getting shit on. So once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to whatever channel you're watching on. Hayden Shed on my channel. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., Hayden, along with a couple of others, Mets Roundtable Podcast, 6 p.m. tomorrow, 2 hours before the game against the Astros. So make sure you tune into that. A lot of good perspectives from, of course, Hayden and the other guys that have channels and podcasts as well. So once again, hit on that like button, subscribe to the channels, keep on coming back for more, guys. Mets 33-38, 71 games into the season. Everybody, I'll see you tomorrow night. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. Hayden, good night, buddy.
I love GM, guys.
You'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets year for all your Mets here. Let's go.